Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning and welcome to this panel conversation that's led by the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation in partnership with the National Press Club, working in collaboration with the University of South Africa. The conversation, as most of you would be fairly aware, it centers around the 30 years of our democracy. We review which is a perspective on the 30-year review report on South Africa's democracy and the future ahead. So it's great for a nation to plan its life and say, for the next 30 years or thereabouts, these are the things that we envisage we'll do. And this is how, as a nation, we'll take our people or the nation from one point to the other. But of course, in that space, it's important to also, as you implement the key milestones that are embedded in your plan, you're able to factor in development stages, but also take stock of what has been done to date. There's a lot of changes. There's disruptions. COVID showed us and reminded us that changes always to influence where the nation is going. All of a sudden, people can work from home. Digital disruption has re-engineered and redrawn their engagements. Good morning. My name is Albi Modise. I will be chairing this conversation. I would like to, without wasting much time, introduce the panel members that are joining us this morning. I will start with the Professor Maganu, who is here on behalf of the University of South Africa. Professor is standing in the space that had been reserved for the Vice Chancellor. And Prof. Maganu is the Vice Principal, Institutional Advancement. Prof, good morning, and I shouldn't be welcoming you. I should be asking you to welcome us, but I will ask you to do that when that moment arrives. But thank you so much for agreeing to be part of this national conversation. Dr. Robert Nkuna is the Director General at the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, the key sponsor of this particular engagement, largely because the report that we're looking at forms part of the work portfolio of the DPME. Doc, good morning. Professor Nania Bola-Muller, the Divisional Executive at the HSRC, who is also part of the panel. Prof, good morning and welcome. It's always great to have institutions like HSRC. I often see and hear projections made whenever there's elections, whenever a nation is in transition. You, as the research organization, part of the conversations as well, and it's great to have you here as well. Professor Paul Zilungisele Tembe, the Visiting Associate Professor at the China Foreign Affairs University in Beijing. Prof, I know that you've got a close relationship with this university here. We welcome you to this conversation as well. Thank you so much. Without much further ado, let me also extend a very warm welcome to the National Planning Commissioner, Dr. I'm fairly aware that part of the work of government has included, amongst others, having a central planning commission that will ensure that all the different activities and work programs happening within the different departments of government are centrally planned for, and we're able to project to say, over the next 30 years, where do we take the state? Where do we want the economy to go? Where do we want society to go? And how do we ensure that our democracy matures as we begin to do all of those? And the Planning Commission is entrusted with some of those responsibilities. Thank you so much, Doctor. Dr. Kefile Masiteng, most of you would remember from her days at the Stats SA. She's now the head. Very good morning and welcome. I was saying to Doc that a lot of the time when Stats SA had to explain and unpack statistics and how you bring it and make it relevant to phase was a popular one on our screens, explaining all of those and the development in that space. So it's great to have United Nations as part of the conversation as well. Prof. Dirk Kotze. He's from the UNISA School of Politics. So it's a very high-packed panel of experts, academics, public servants. Is the focal person when it comes to the 30-year synthetic report. So he led that process that put together this report. So if there's one person who could be crucified if there's a need to do that, whenever you talk, rather led that particular team. Mr. Mashamba, keep on saying doctor. You know, I hope you receive. You know, as society, you've got an interest of the country at heart. It's students from your university, I'm sure from the Faculty of Political Science, School of Political Science, most of you, there's enough work that can be relied upon when you do that. But without much further ado, ladies and gentlemen, firstly, let me introduce myself. My name is Albi Mudise. It's an important consideration, am I right? You go to unisa.events, the password unisa@2022 @ and as you tweet, as you update your socials, hashtag 30 years of freedom, hashtag 30 years of review, @DPME, @UNISA, @presidency, @NPC. Those are some of the hashtags that you can use as you unpack or you comment on that. Without much on this conversation. Doc?
Okay, good morning, Program Director, Professor Mohano, standing in for the Vice Chancellor, as it has been indicated that she is unable to be with us for what will be explained later, other commitments. The leadership of the Press Club, distinguished panelists, I can say that we have a very star-studded panel. You know, anyone will dream of a panel like this. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for giving us this opportunity as DPME to work with us to host this event. Now, my job is easier because when we launched the report on the 8th, the President went at great length to explain the report, so did the Minister and other leaders who attended the launch. So I'm not going, because I take it that all of us by now have read the report. But what I will do in few minutes is just to reflect on what can be done going forward, because I think that is the most important thing. So having read the report, all of us, the question for me is, in my current position, is what is to be done, what are we going to do? Just some few pointers in terms of what we are grappling with. As things stand now, we are busy attempting to, for the next administration, the 7th administration. Now the political parties are out there in the field convincing us, engaging us, so that we vote for them. Now while we the outcome of the elections, it's important for us as a department to start thinking about some of the issues that may be critical for the country going forward, so that we don't wait for what is coming from the electoral process. But I must indicate that we do follow. We have read many manifestos. We have a sense of what it is that the different parties are putting on the table. Now, as we do our part as the administration, take note of the following issue. We believe at DPME that the economy should be at the center of gravity, should be central to everything that we are going to be doing in the next administration. Now, when we say the economy should be at the center, that means that what are going to be period, but that's not necessarily a long-term economic strategy of government. It was introduced just to mitigate the challenges that we faced with. The other thing with and as we struggle with impact in a number of areas, but also value chains, so that you don't want a situation whereby you give people land which they cannot use, so you give policy. In my village where I come from in the north, I'm told that 60 million is paid on monthly basis of social grants, but that money does not even stay for a day, after it has been paid in that community. And now the question is, what can be done to ensure that we use that opportunity to facilitate local economic development? There are other enablers that we'll worry about: the state of local government, the state of state-owned entities. We need to address that with some vigor than we have done before. Now, lastly, to speak about this event, it's not a talk shop in any sense. But this is an engagement amongst partners, and I believe that at the end of this, there will be some action items that all of us are going to take forward. So you see, when you have been on a poster, you may be tempted to speak much longer because you need to justify why you were put in a poster for this event, like in my case. But I would prefer to do much of the listening to what our esteemed panelists are going to be saying to us. And I hope that at the end, we will have a clarity of purpose in terms of what it is that we can do together going forward. So, Program Director, I was not told about the dress code. I just assumed that 2 days before the Africa Day, it may be more opportune for one to look like I do today. Thank you.
DG Nguna, thank you so much. You are well suited for the occasion. As we brace ourselves for Africa Day, the year when our democracy turns 30, but also as we also brace ourselves for elections, that remind us all that our democracy is maturing. It's maturing because every time we hold elections, the observers and the IEC, they come back to say that it's free and fair. And that always gives us a sense of comfort to know that our democracy is maturing after the very many years of exclusion, of segregation, of racial discrimination. Before we kick off the program, I'm going to invite the Prof to welcome us, with Prof Solomon Mahano, to welcome us with the keynote address this morning. And following which, then move to and have a conversation. Let me also welcome those who are joining us online using different platforms and social media as well. There are those who are connecting with us virtually. We welcome you all as part of this conversation. A nation that understands the need to have conversations is going to understand the significance of planning jointly, but also ensure that as we march towards a common future, we do that in unison as well. Prof Mahano, good morning, and we'd appreciate this few remarks.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you. As the program director Remodise indicated, my name is Ramafai Mahano, and I'm currently serving on an interim basis as Vice Principal, Institutional Development. However, substantively, I am a Professor of Parasitology and the Executive Dean of the College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences. Because of competing priorities which often typify our business at the university, the Principal and Vice Chancellor of our university, Professor Pulen Lengabula, is unable to be with us. Ordinarily, a day is laden with multiple activities which should not obstruct one another. But she nonetheless has entrusted the responsibility to read her work to me. I must emphasize that this is the Vice Chancellor's speech. I do not be misled to think that I'm referring to myself. The I refers to the principal is to imagine listening to the beautiful feminine voice of the Vice Chancellor in order to derive full meaning of this presidency. Dr. Robert Nkuna, distinguished panelists, members of the extended management of our university, representatives, and other members of the National Press Club, members of the media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. In a matter of 6 days from today, South Africans across the length and breadth of our country will descend on over 23,000 voting stations and administration of the Republic of South Africa. Thousands of our other compatriots in countries outside South Africa have already done so at several East Africa, Asia, Europe, North America, South America, and Oceania. It will be exactly 30 years since the first in 1994, when the majority of our people cast their votes for the very first time, thus ushering in a new era in South Africa, an era characterized by consistent South Africa, His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa put it more aptly when he defined this period in 1994 as a decisive break with administration has put together a review report on the implementation and impact of government programs in the 30 years since the dawn of democracy in 1994 to 2024, which was launched and handed to His Excellency, the President Cyril conducted by the democratic government since 1994. It is a very useful tool for the country and its citizens to analyze and review how democracy is disadvantaged in the last 30 years and to draw lessons from these years as we endeavor to propel this young democracy forward. Our university, an institution that not only carries the name of the country, but one which has formed the university system in the country, graduates that our economy so dearly needs. I am also elated and honored by the opportunity to play the role as a participant in this discourse as Principal and Vice Chancellor of UNISA. The commemoration of 30 years of as well as mediate and or mitigate against any democratic fault lines. At the center of society's transition from an apartheid colonial past to an independent, free and democratic state is exactly what Nelson Mandela defined as the sun that shall never set on so glorious a human achievement, an expression he made when he was inaugurated as a brief history of humankind. Yuval Harari identifies cognitive revolution, agricultural revolution, transitions that help society to progress and improve the human condition. The latter is the pursuit of a better life for all in our South African lexicon. Like any other state in its pursuit to the development state, from South Africa's 1994's first democratic elections to date, it will indeed be constructive to make a retrospective of the innate humanity of Black people was denied. The right to choose a government of one's choice is an important political building block in dignity and worth. We have also witnessed the reconstruction of our public services and other state institutions. Although a seeming contradiction, the expansion of the so-called black middle class is also an important component of the 30 years of our democratic society. Noteworthy is the fact that South Africa has been readmitted into the global community in other countries. It is not only an anti-colonial and anti-apartheid model, but also a model of transitions. Since 1994, the world experienced international activism by South African leaders such as President that UNISA also played a crucial role in the education of the political leaders of the Sudan. The Mandela democracy and human rights globally. The Mbeki administration developed an African agenda with a multilateral. The Mbeki era also invested much political capital in African peacemaking and building and multilateral during the last 30 years. Noteworthy is that once democracy has been established, though, it is not guaranteed. Contradictions in socio-economic inequalities, increased violence and underemployment, which are factors undermining actors, including universities, have an important role to play in. The success of any democracy thus depends on citizens with universities in South Africa, has over the past 150 years made an indispensable contribution towards, such as, among several others, the first president of the democratic South Africa, President Nelson Mandela, as well as the city's role in fighting for democracy. Some of the other leaders range from lawyers, teachers, business persons, religious leaders to others, and diplomats, among others. Granted, many people rightly opine that there are still so many of our people who have not yet been touched. None can dispute that the fact that a lot more has changed to the better for millions of South Africans who hitherto apartheid government inherited one of the most unequal societies in the world, characterized by deep-seated marginalization and discrimination. The Census 2022 statistics, officially released a mere 6 months ago, demonstrate beyond question that South Africa, with a population that has grown from just... Of course, we are all adamant that whilst a lot of progress has been made in the various spheres of life, especially in priority and housing, a lot more can and should still be done. Realistically, though, to completely reverse over 370 years cannot happen in 3 decades. We can, however, take solace in the knowledge that democratic government has, in the last 30 years, taken deliberate steps to push back the frontiers of poverty and inequality, as well as build. In 1994, the primacy of education as a national asset and a resource for the transformation of society has been when access to higher education remained just a pipe dream for many black South Africans from the margins. Today, those aspiring to further their studies can do so with less hassle, student financial scheme. In an annum, approximately 175,597 completing a post-school education increased from 7.1% in 1996 to 12.2% in 2022, according to the Institute towards rising incomes, higher productivity, and a move towards a more knowledge-intensive. Data also shows that 82.4% of the population has access to piped water, from the 60.8% recorded in the 1996 census. Still in 1996, for lighting was 58.1%, but today
it stands at a staggering 94. Source of energy decreasing significantly. Those who use electricity for cooking now stand at 64. To internet, a critical necessity mostly in business and education, has been on an upward trend since 2011, with households without 2022. The census also shows an upward trend in households residing in formal dwellings such as formal houses with brick or concrete structures, flats, apartments, and cluster houses. The figure increased from 65.1% in 19 men are but some of the major gains of the democratic dispensation and
perspective of their station in life, an economic model that sought to include everyone to ensure that the dignity that is enshrined in the Constitution is extended to all. The fringes who were on the periphery and are not fully integrated to the economy. But also part of the work included, amongst others, to revisit our foreign relations, the work that we had to do in terms of how do we use humanity. And now, post-1994, a new dispensation is born. The state has to really stitch together different communities that were designated in different homelands, parts of the world, of the country. It was also an economy that had not sought to include the majority of the people who were only designated to be laborers, and hence the creation of the townships. Focus more on inviting the panel members to dissect and to look at the 30-year review. And I talked about the international model, and I talked about it because I'm trying to